Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today I'll be talking about why the New York Jets still have to take a quarterback if they don't get the number one pick. Before we get started today, I just wanted to mention that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast. New episodes every Wednesday. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can call in, leave me a question, and I'll try to get to it on the show. All right, so obviously, I'm still upset about yesterday's win, which was more like a loss, and I'm sure you are too. And now there's going to be, unfortunately, unless Jacksonville wins another game this year, but if the Jets end up with the number 2 pick, there's going to be a ton of debates. Do you keep Sam Darnold? Do you trade back? Do you stay there and take Justin Fields? Do you take Zach Wilson? What the hell do you do now that Trevor Lawrence is out of the picture? For now, maybe that changes over the next couple of weeks, but this is under the impression that the Jets don't add the number 1 pick and aren't able to draft Trevor Lawrence. But you, in my opinion, the answer is very clear. You still have to take a quarterback. Even at number 2 overall, I think you have to take a quarterback because let's look at it this way. Sam Darnold has really, really been bad. If he's been average to okay, if he was even on pace for the year that he was having last year, then okay, sure. If the Jets are picking 2, 3, whatever it is, sure, you roll with him and you take somebody else. But that's not the case. He has been statistically the worst starting quarterback in football. Yesterday was supposedly his best game of the year, one of his best games of the year, if that. Even at his best for this year, he had 207 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown, 6.7 yards per attempt. That's not good enough. He wasn't phenomenal. He was okay. This was an okay performance from Sam Darnold, and unfortunately, there's been too many really bad performances this year for me to feel comfortable passing up on a quarterback prospect at the 2nd pick. He's played 10 games this year. He's 1-9 in those 10 games. He has 1,767 passing yards, which is 176.7 yards per game, which is just not nearly enough. 6 passing touchdowns to 9 interceptions. If you pace that out over a full season, that's 2,827 yards, 10 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Now, I am with you that I think Gase is a big reason for why Sam Darnold is where he is right now. But even still, it's too risky to bet on him figuring it out in year 4. Can he do it? Maybe, but he needs to get significantly better at some things that he wasn't doing just last year or the year before. He has regressed in a lot of ways. For example, he is running out of bounds and taking sacks instead of throwing the ball away. He does not have good footwork. He never really had great footwork, but in his first year, his footwork was much improved and his mechanics was much improved. Those have significantly regressed over the last 2 years. His decision making, he still at times tries to play hero balls too much and tries to make plays when nothing is there and unfortunately throws the ball when he should just throw it away. Today, I will give him credit. There were times where he did just throw the ball away in good spots, but unfortunately, usually every week there's 1 or 2 throws where you're looking like, what the hell is this kid doing? And maybe that's changeable, but I think he would have to be in an absolutely perfect situation for him to get right, kind of like what happened with Ryan Tannehill and the Titans. Maybe he figures it out somewhere else. The Jets can't afford to take that risk, unfortunately, because they have so many holes and they need a new head coach. That's the thing. It's not like they're keeping their head coach. They are going to be trying to recruit one. And obviously having the number 1 overall pick makes that so much easier. But now with the number 2 pick, that makes the job so much harder finding that top tier coach. So let's say you went from, if you were the number 1 pick, a top 1, maybe 2 or 3 destination. Now, I would say the Jaguars job is more appealing with the number 1 pick. I would say that the Chargers job working with Justin Herbert's pretty appealing. I would say the Texans job working with Deshaun Watson is going to be pretty appealing. So the Jets are maybe the 4th job that I would say, even with the number 2 pick. But then you could make that so much harder if you were saying, okay, not only are you not getting Trevor Lawrence, but instead you have to be paired with Sam Darnold. I don't know. I think you're significantly limiting who would you be able to bring in as a head coach if you are sticking with Sam Darnold. If you decide to move on and trade him and get even more assets and take someone at the top of the draft, then I think you are more likely to get a better head coaching candidate in here with his guy and everything like that. So my take on this is don't make this complicated. Take the player at 2. Don't trade back. Don't try to get cute with it. Like maybe you can move back and acquire more draft picks and your guy is still there a few spots back. I'm not trying to do that. I have a ton of assets. When I trade Sam Darnold, I'm going to have another pick in the first 3 rounds as well, probably round 2, maybe round 3 there. So you have a ton of assets already. I know who I want. If I am the New York Jets, I'm not saying this is what they will do, but I like Zach Wilson. That's the guy that I would go with. To me, you take your QB2, whoever that is on your board. Mine is Zach Wilson. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He's 21 years old right now. He'll turn 22 in August of 2021. On the season, he has 3,274 passing yards, which is 297.6 passing yards per game, 30 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, a 73.1 completion percentage, and a 10.1 yards per attempt. Those stats are really, really solid for a BYU quarterback. There's no denying that. And he can run with the ball too. He has 242 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns on the season. He has great playmaking abilities, which makes him extremely exciting. He can extend plays with his legs. He gets creative. He can kind of do, like when Sam Darnold's at his best and outside the pocket and making plays like that, Wilson has those same kind of traits. Something else that I really like about him is he can throw from so many different arm slots. He can go from 3/4. He could do a little sidearm. He could go over the top. He's able to adjust and make throws at different arm angles depending on the situation, which I'm not saying he's going to be Patrick Mahomes, but I'm saying that specifically is a Pat Mahomes trait, and not every quarterback has that. Not every quarterback can make those kinds of throws, and his arm strength is just absolutely phenomenal to go along with his quick release. So there is a lot of enticing things about him as a prospect. My biggest con with him is sometimes I feel like he can force the ball too much. Yes, he only has 3 interceptions this year, but I think he needs to learn to check down and try, because at times he just tries to do a little bit too much. He almost has a little bit of like Brett Favre kind of tendencies, which is interesting because Brett Favre was a very, very good player in this league, but it could also come back to bite you. But I feel like that is something that you can develop and get out of a player as a rookie. If you're still making those mistakes going into your 4th year in the league, it's a lot harder to change that at that point in your career. Why I like Wilson over Justin Fields, and I'm not completely out on Justin Fields yet. I'm just a little bit nervous based on 2 of his performances this year. In his 2 biggest games against Indiana and this past week against Northwestern, he turned the ball over a lot. 5 interceptions in those 2 games. 3 against Indiana. They ended up winning that game. He did throw for 300 yards in that game, but again, turned it over a lot. And this past week was really rough. In the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State's, to this point, their biggest game of the year, he threw for 114 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 44.4 completion percentage. That scares me a little bit. I'm not saying that he's definitely going to be a bust at the next level or by any stretch of the imagination, or that he doesn't deserve to be QB2 on some people's boards. He's QB3 on mine. It's not saying it's a bad thing. I just like Wilson a little bit better right now, and maybe that changes with a good college football playoff. Maybe he can go back up my board. This is not written in stone just yet, but as of now, those things scare me a little bit. Obviously, in a perfect world, you don't have to worry about that. You have the number 1 pick and you could draft Trevor Lawrence. But as it stands right now, the Jets don't have that. They have the number 2 pick. But to me, I think you would be making a mistake if you keep Sam Darnold, because you are limiting so many other things that you could do, because you're going to have to pay him the big money in a couple of years if you decide to stick with him, because he's going into his 4th year, and then you have to decide, do we pick up the 5th year option? And then if you don't pick up the 5th year option, then you got to pay him after that if you decide to keep him. It's just so many things when realistically you can reset that rookie clock and that rookie contract by just drafting the guy that you like, number 2. And obviously, it all depends on what Joe Douglas and what the new coach wants to do. If they want to build their offense around the Justin Fields-like prospect, then fine. I'm okay with that. If they want to do it with Zach Wilson, then great. I prefer Wilson even. But I'm just saying what I would do and what I think makes the most sense. I don't want this to seem like I'm 100% an anti-Darnold guy. That's not necessarily the case. Like, I was rooting for this kid to do well, but I really think the Jets ruined him to the point where they cannot bet on him figuring it out in year 4. They have to move on. They have to get the assets, and they have to, again, reset the rookie clock, because they're not going to be ready to compete on Darnold's rookie year, which is such an important factor in all of this. So it's complicated. It's not easy. I wish we didn't have to talk about this. I wish we could just talk about how the Jets tank was rolling on and that Trevor Lawrence is right in the Jets' eyes, but gonna need a miracle. Gonna need the Jaguars to beat either the Bears or the Colts, which I was confident in them beating the Bears, but with how the Bears have played the last couple of weeks, I'm not as confident in that. So we're going to have to see. But for now, let me know in the comments below what you would do if you're picking number 2 overall, and we'll discuss. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll talk to you next time.